ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಗುರುರ್ವಿಷ್ಣು ಗುರುರ್ದೇವೋ ಮಹೇಶ್ವರಃ ಗುರುಸ್ಸಾಕ್ಷಾತ್ ಪರಂ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ತಸ್ಮೈ ಶ್ರೀ ಗುರವೇ ನಮಃ. Okay, at least one person is seen, but doesn't matter, I shall continue. I don't wait for others. Today is Sugama. That means today is Friday or Thursday? Yeah, it is Friday. So Friday is Sugama. Where are we? Atmaikatva Vidya. On this point. 66th point, I think. Yeah. This point he answers twice. The next point is Yattu Ashankyate. In Ramanuja Paksha, ರಾಮಾನುಜಾಚಾರ್ಯರ ಆಕ್ಷೇಪವಿತ್ತು. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ನಿಂದ ನಾನು ಕನ್ನಡಕ್ಕೆ ಬದಲಾಯಿಸೋದು ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದೇನೋ. ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳುವರೆ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟರು, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲೇ ಹೇಳಿಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಥವಾ ತೆಲುಗಿನಲ್ಲೇ ಹೇಳಿಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಆಯಿತು. ರಾಮಾನುಜರ ಆಕ್ಷೇಪವಿತ್ತು ಆತ್ಮೈಕತ್ವ ವಿದ್ಯಾ, ಆತ್ಮ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಗಳ ಏಕತ್ವವು ಹೊಂದುವುದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ದ ಯುನಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಆತ್ಮ ವಿತ್ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್. ದಿಸ್ ವಾಸ್ ದ ಅಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರೇಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ರಾಮಾನುಜಾಚಾರ್ಯ, ಆರ್ ಎ ಫಾಲೋವರ್ ಆಫ್ ಎ ರಾಮಾನುಜಾಚಾರ್ಯ, ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಸೇ. ಸೊ ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಸ್ಯಾಪಿ ಅವಿದ್ಯಾಪುರಸ್ತ್ವರಸ್ಯ ಅವಿಶೇಷಾತ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ವಾಸ್, ಶಾಲ್ ಐ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಇಟ್? ಹಿಂದೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಸಲ ರಿಪೀಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಅದ್ವೈತಕ್ಕೆ ಆತ್ಮದ್ವೈತ, ಫಾರ್ ದ ಯುನಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಆತ್ಮ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ್ ದೆರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ. ಆಲ್ ಪ್ರಮಾಣಸ್ ರಿವೀಲ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ರಿಲೇಟಿವ್ ನಾಲೆಡ್ಜ್. There is no pramana that reveals a non-relational absolute fact. Absoluteness is non-existent. ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ ಸರ್ವ ಸಂಬಂಧರಹಿತ ಎಂಬುವುದು ಇಲ್ಲವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ಏಕೆಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರಮಾಣಗಳು ಸಂಬಂಧಾರ್ಥವನ್ನು ಹೇಳುತ್ತವೆ ಹೊರತು ಪ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಷವೂ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನೇ ಹೇಳ್ತದೆ, ಅನುಮಾನ ಸಂಬಂಧ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಶಬ್ದ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಸಂಬಂಧ. ಆಲ್ ದ ಪ್ರಮಾಣಸ್ ಟೀಚ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಸಂಬಂಧ. ಸೊ ಸಂಬಂಧರಹಿತ ನಾನ್ ರಿಲೇಷನಲ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ? ಪ್ರಮಾಣವೇ ಇಲ್ಲವಲ್ಲ. ದಿಸ್ ವಾಸ್ ದನ್ ಅಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಷನ್. ದೆರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಫಾರ್ ಇಟ್. ದಿಸ್ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್. ಐ ಆಮ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಸಮ್ಮರೈಸಿಂಗ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್. ಹಿಂದೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೇವೋ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾರವನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಹಿಂದಿನ ಪಾಠದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಯಿತು. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಉತ್ತರ, ವೇದಾಂತಿಗಳ ಉತ್ತರ ಏನೆಂದರೆ, ಪ್ರಮಾಣದಿಂದ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುವಂಥದ್ದಲ್ಲ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮತತ್ವ, ಅದು ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಿದ್ಧವೇ. ಬ್ರಹ್ಮತ್ವಂ ಜೀವಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಐಕ್ಯ, ದ ಒನ್ನೆಸ್ ಯುನಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಆತ್ಮ ವಿತ್ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮನ್ is not revealed by any pramana. Pramana is only correcting. Okay. Pramana is correcting an obstruction, eliminating an obstruction for the self-existing Atma. Atma being non-dual is self-existent. Okay. It doesn't... self-existent means it is beyond the very relationship of pramata, pramana, prameya. ಪ್ರಮಾತೃ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಪ್ರಮೇಯ ಸಂಬಂಧಗಳನ್ನು ದಾಟಿ ಇದೆ. ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಪ್ರಮಾತ ಪ್ರಮೇಯ ಎಂಬ ಯಾವ ತ್ರಿಪುಟಿ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇದೆಯೋ ಆ ಸಂಬಂಧದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನು ದಾಟಿ ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಿದ್ಧವಾಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಅದ್ವಿತೀಯ ಆತ್ಮ, ನಾನ್-ಡ್ಯುವಲ್ ಆತ್ಮ, exists on its own independently beyond the relationship of subject-object. Therefore, Brahman is not an object which you could know standing as a subject. If you stand as a subject, you would be able to know it only as an object. But here he is removing the relative state of subject and object. ಜ್ಞಾತೃಜ್ಞೇಯವೆಂಬ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನೇ ನಿಷೇಧ ಮಾಡಿ. It dissolves the very relationship with subject object, and the Swatah Siddha Atma remains. This is how it reveals. Therefore we don't say that ನಾವು ಹೇಳುತ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅದ್ವಿತೀಯ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಸಿದ್ಧ ಎಂದು ನಾವು ಹೇಳಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ಅವರೇ ಊಹಿಸಿಕೊಂಡರು. ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಎಂಬುದು ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಸಿದ್ಧ ಅಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ನೆನಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡು, ಯಾವ ಪ್ರಮಾಣದಿಂದ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ? ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಸಿದ್ಧವಲ್ಲ, ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಿದ್ಧವನ್ನು. ಪ್ರಮಾಣಗಳನ್ನೇ ದಾಟಿ ಬಿಡುತ್ತೇವೆ. ಪ್ರಮಾಣಗಳೇ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲದ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಅದು ನೋಡಿ, ಪ್ರಮಾಣಗಳು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಪ್ರಮಾಣಗಳು ಇರುವುದೇ ಅಡ್ಡಿ. ನೋಡಿ, ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಿದ್ಧವಾಗಿರುವ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಯಲು ಪ್ರಮಾತೃ ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಪ್ರಮೇಯ ಎಂಬ ಹಂತದಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವುದೇ ಅದ್ವಿತೀಯ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿಯುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಡ್ಡಿ. ದ ವೇರಿ realm of subject object duality, standing at the level of subject object duality itself is an obstruction to understand what exists beyond subject object duality. Therefore we are not trying to understand non-dual Brahman within the realm of, within the relationship of subject and object. In fact, this subject and object relative status itself is an obstructing you to understand the Swatah Siddha non-duality. So we are only removing it, negating the very relative status of subject object, and on its negation the non-duality, which is self-existing and self-proven, becomes evident. In fact, it is always there. It is always there. The subject object, regarding the subject object duality, now the subject object duality has to be dissolved. How do you dissolve it? Subject object duality is not a reality. It is not a reality. How do you know that it is not a reality? It is negatable. It is negatable because it is not real. It is not real. How do you know? Your very self-existing non-dual Atma is the proof. That Atma itself stands, because Atma being non-dual, it always stands. This duality doesn't exist all the time. There are certain experiences in our life, like deep sleep, where you are free from subject-object duality. So our own anubhava, where subject-object, the experience of subject-object duality is variable. Variable means it goes away. The subject-object duality, the experience of subject, the relative experience of subject-object duality, ಜ್ಞಾತೃಜ್ಞೇಯವೆಂಬ ಸಂಬಂಧ ರೂಪ ಅನುಭವ ತಾನೇ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗುತ್ತದೆ, ವ್ಯಭಿಚಾರವಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. But non-dual experience doesn't come and go, it stands on its own. Therefore, what remains on its own and what appears and changes, what appears and gives way, that means goes away, what appears and disappears, and what neither comes nor goes but remains all the time, these two got mixed up. Swatah Siddha Brahma is there in our Anubhava, that remains on its own. Swatah Siddha Tanutanage iruttade, and then Dvaita Anubhava of subject and object, this comes and goes. So this comes and goes itself is a proof that it is not real. How do you know? Because I stand as unchangeable, neither coming nor going. That consciousness remains as eternal and watches, survives the disappearance of duality. It survives the disappearance of subject-object. ಜ್ಞಾತೃಜ್ಞೇಯವೆಂಬ ದ್ವೈತವು ಬಿದ್ದು ಹೋಗಿರುವುದನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಅದ್ವಿತೀಯ ತಾನೇ ಇದೆ. ತಾನೇ ಇರುವ ಅದ್ವಿತೀಯ ಅನುಭವ ತನಕ ತಾನೇ ಪ್ರೂಫ್. ಹೇಗೆ ಪ್ರೂಫ್? ಯಾವುದು ತನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಮಾತೃ ಪ್ರಮೇಯವೆಂಬ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಬಿದ್ದು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ, ದ ರಿಲೇಟಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಸಾಲ್ವಿಂಗ್, ಈಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಅವೇ, ಲೀವಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್ ದ ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಿದ್ಧ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಥ್ರೂ ಔಟ್. So ಸ್ವತಃ ಸಿದ್ಧ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ non-dual experience is existing on its own, whereas this tentative experience of subject-object duality is proving itself to be a tentative, is proving itself to be varying, changing. This is the proof. This itself is a proof. Only you have to watch. You don't have to bring the proof. The proof is in the Brahman only. The proof is in Brahman that the Dvaitam is Mithya. Dvaitam is a Mithya. The proof for its Mithyatvam is in your Anubhava. That Brahman is Swatah Siddham, that Brahman is Satyam. The proof of it is your Anubhava. You watch your Anubhava. You don't have to bring the new proof. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೊಸ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯವನ್ನೇನು ತರಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಇರುವ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯವನ್ನು ಗಮನಿಸಿದ್ದರೆ ಅದೇ ತನ್ನ ಸ್ವರೂಪ ತಾನೇ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತದೆ, ತಾನೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತದೆ. ಗಮನಿಸುವುದು ಬೇಕು. ಯು ವಾಚ್ ಯುವರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್. ಇನ್ ಯುವರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೀರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಸ್ ಅನ್ಚೇಂಜ್ಡ್, ವಾಟ್ ಸ್ಟೇಸ್ಡ್ ಚೇಂಜ್ಲೆಸ್, ಬೈ ವಾಚಿಂಗ್ ಎನಿ ಅಮೌಂಟ್, ಬೈ ವಾಚಿಂಗ್ ಎನಿ ಲೆಂತ್ ಆಫ್ ಟೈಮ್. By watching any length of time, by watching any amount, by watching in any experience, what stays unwavering, unchanging, and what changes. In a given experience it appears, but in another experience it changes. So there is a changing experience, there is a changeless experience. There is a varying experience, there is an invariable experience. ಒಂದೇನೋ ಬದಲಾಯಿಸುವ ಅನುಭವ, ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಏನೂ ಬದಲಾಯಿಸದೆ ತಾನು ಎಂದಿಗೂ ಇರುವ ಅನುಭವ. ಈ ಅನುಭವಗಳನ್ನು ಗಮನಿಸು, ಅವೇ ತಮ್ಮನ್ನು ತಾವು ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತವೆ, ತಾವೇ ಇವೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ನೀವೇನು ಹೊಸ ಸಾಕ್ಷ್ಯವೇನೂ ತರಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಗಮನಿಸು, ತಾನೇ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತದೆ. ಪ್ರಮಾತೃ ಪ್ರಮೇಯವೆಂಬ ಸಂಬಂಧವನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡೇ ನೀವು ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಯು ಆರ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ರಿಟೇನಿಂಗ್ ದ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಡ್ಯುಯಾಲಿಟಿ. You are talking retaining the subject-object relationship, relative experience. So you stay within the subject-objective experience and keep on talking. And we say this subject-object relation itself is giving way, it is going away. And there is something which stands on its own, which is not divided into subject-object. That means it is the same is the subject, same is the object. That means what? In subject there is awareness. In object there is awareness. That means subject there is consciousness. Object also there is consciousness. How? When you know the object becomes known in the consciousness. Suppose you are looking at a pen. Okay? That I am seeing, the very experience of seeing takes place in your awareness. I am seeing a pen. Okay. The pen, when it becomes known to you, it remains in your consciousness. Okay. When you are looking at the pen, see here, I am seeing a pen. Two things are there. I am seeing, there is a seeing and the object of seeing. Okay. I am seeing and there is an object to be seen. There is something common to these both the experiences. I am seeing and there is an object that is seen. In these things there is one thing common, without which neither subject exists nor object exists. There is one thing common to both, that I am seeing is a conscious experience. I am seeing is a conscious experience, or in other words, consciousness in a mode of seeing. Consciousness in a mode of seeing, in a function of seeing, is called seeing. Seeing is a mode of consciousness. Then what is pen? Pen is a mode of consciousness again. the consciousness appearing in an objective mode, consciousness appearing in a subjective mode. In a subjectness, there is consciousness. In objectness, you see anything. I know when I say the knowing is a matter of consciousness. I know something, even what you know, that also should remain in consciousness. Then only it becomes known. If it is outside consciousness, you cannot know. You try. Can you know something which is outside your consciousness? If it is outside your consciousness, how will you bring it into consciousness? Is it possible to bring? First thing is, if it is outside your consciousness, how can you bring it into consciousness? First, how do you know that it is outside your consciousness? First thing is, how can you think of outside consciousness? Tell me. Can you think of outside your consciousness? What does it mean? Does it make any sense? Is there such thing called outside your consciousness? There is nothing outside, because outside the very idea is within your consciousness. The outside consciousness is a meaningless word. Therefore, there can be nothing which is outside your consciousness. It has to be within consciousness. Therefore, object, when you know, it is within your consciousness. The very knowing is part of your consciousness. What is known is a part of consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is common to the subject and object. So there are only two appearances, two forms of appearance, two modes of appearance of the one consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is unchanging. Subject changes, object changes. But the consciousness, which is underlying subject, underlying object, because object implies consciousness, subject implies consciousness, isn't it? Object implies consciousness, subject implies consciousness. So subject, object, these two are within consciousness alone. So we generally think that knowing, what is knowing? Knowing means bringing what is outside consciousness into within consciousness. Bringing what is outside consciousness into consciousness is called knowing. We think like that. But it is wrong, because there is no such thing called outside consciousness. Nobody can think of outside consciousness. Is there something outside? First thing is outside consciousness. How do you know? How do you know that such a thing is there? Even the thought of outside consciousness is within consciousness. Therefore, ultimately, everything has to be within consciousness. Nothing is outside consciousness. See? Is there anything outside consciousness? There can't be anything. Therefore, subject and object, these two, subject and object, these two are within consciousness alone. Therefore, what is common to both is consciousness. So we divide the very consciousness into subject and the object, and stand as a subject and try to know the object, and say that yes, I have known this object. So this is only a relative way. Within the same consciousness, you are making a relative thing. Take up one aspect of it and look at another aspect of it. Stand as a subject and try to know the object, and say that I am knowing the object. But the object and subject both are not independently. See, can you say subject remained separate, object remained separate, and they came and attached together? They got attached? No. Because where is object before you knew it? If it is not there, if it is outside your consciousness, how will you bring it into consciousness? Such a thing is impossible. Though common people think like that, but that's a mistake. That's a misunderstanding. Therefore, subject, object, both are within the consciousness. Consciousness is common underlying fact, common fact underlying between them. Therefore, subject-object duality, all our knowledges, whether worldly knowledge or religious knowledge, all knowledges stand within the consciousness within the relationship of subject and object. So here Purvapakshi was asking, For the non-duality, where is the proof? Where is the proof for non-duality? Because any pramana reveals only duality. Means any knowledge occurs within the relationship of subject-object. So any knowledge has to take place within the relationship of and subject-object. So more you know, more you remain within that relative state of subject-object, subject-object, only that. Now you are talking of Advaita, which transcends both subject-object relationship. It is a non-relational absolute fact. You are telling it is non-relational. But he says, where is the proof for that non-relational? He is asking, Purvapakshi says, where is the proof for that non-relational truth? Vedantin says that non-relational is a self-existing fact. In fact, you are looking at the subject-object relationship itself is a tentative. It is one aspect, tentative in the sense, it is only an aspect, it is not absolute fact. How do you know? Because it is going away. In waking, you have subject-object duality. In deep sleep, there is no duality. There is no relative consciousness. There is no relative knowing. So, that non-duality stays on its own. The subject-object relationship obtains in the waking, but disappears in the... Disappear means goes away. Goes away in the deep sleep. That means there is an experience which is without subject-object duality. And it is watching, it is aware of the subject-object duality and absence of subject-object duality. Absence of the duality and presence of duality. It is aware of both. It is standing as a basis of both. So that truth which stands as a basis neither comes nor goes. So it is not a thought. In other words, it is not a thought. Relation is thought. That non-relational Advaitam is not a thought. So thought appears and goes, then who knows? See, thought goes. Who knows that it goes away? Who knows that the thought comes? If one who knows the arrival and departure of thought, coming and disappearing of a thought, if one who knows himself is also another thought, then you would not know it. But fortunately, we are aware of thought going away, thought coming. That means itself is not a thought. It is self-consciousness. It is self-existing consciousness without a thought. Means it is not you cannot think of it. Thinking takes place in that. It is the basis of thinking, all thoughts, good and bad, coming and going. It is the basis in which thoughts appear and disappear. Itself is not a thought. Itself is something which merges, which swallows the thought, which swallows the thinking. Itself is pure consciousness. It is just a bare consciousness. Consciousness without a thought. See, this is interesting thing. It is conscious, but conscious of what? If you say conscious of something, then the thought comes. That something is a thought. Conscious of so and so, this and that is a thought. It is a consciousness without any specification. Specification is a thought. Specification is a relation. Therefore, it is a non-relational athava non-dual consciousness. Non-relational means non-dual. Relational is dual. What is relational? You know as a something, so and so, this. When you say something, so and so, that is relational. Because the knower is defining it, circumscribing it. This, like this, so and so, this is a relational. But you don't specify as this or that. You say neither this nor that. In Sushupti, how was your experience? There was no thought to specify this or that. There is no thought. This or that is a thought. This or that is a thought. In Sushupti, there is no thought which specifies as this or that. So that non-specification non-naming it. Jiddu Krishnamurti calls it as naming. Naming means Vishesha, we call in our Vedantic language. Naming means a specification, distinguishing it, or it is a Vishesha. Nirvishesham Brahma, non-specific, non-naming it. He calls it name it, don't name it. People struggled hard, tried hard to understand him. He says, don't name it. They think that don't name it means keep it in your mind, don't say it outside. They thought like that. Non-naming means don't stand as a subject to know something. Generally, in order to know something, we stand as a subject and objectify it. This I am knowing it. When you know something as this, you stand as you. You stand as subject and know something as this. See, naming means Vishesha. Vishesha means calling it as this. To say this, you have to be a knower apart from this. Subject-object relativeness is required. But here non-duality means you are not standing as a subject of something. You are not standing as a subject for something which happened to be an object of you. Something stands as a subject to you and you stand as a subject to it. Something stands as an object of you. This is relational. Okay. Now he says, don't stand as a subject. That means don't try to know it as a this. Don't specify. When you don't specify, what happens? Awareness is there on its own. The simple awareness, the bare awareness is unspecified. If you specify, it becomes object. And the one who specifies becomes a subject. Specified becomes an object. One who specifies becomes a subject. So you don't stand as a specifier and don't specify anything, just leave it. It is consciousness. Okay. Non-dual. The specifying it, a specifier specifying is a relative. That is Dvaitam. And all pramanas function within this relationship of specifier and specified, subject and object. Your specifying means what? This, in contrast with other. Isn't it? When you specify, you are excluding it from other. Aren't you? You are excluding it from other. You are distinguishing it from other. So there is a duality is coming. This is a relation. Either you compare or contrast, or exclude something, then specify. You specify means this much. When you say, you are excluding the remaining. So this is specifying. This, when you say this, not the remaining. See, the very specification is thought. What is thought? What is waking state? What is dream state? Waking and dream is a state of thought. Thought means what? This is what? Specifying is thought. Specifying is dividing it. This and the remaining. So and so and remaining it. So this specification is twofold. When you say this, you are saying this from the remaining. Or when you say this is specified. Specified means what? Distinguished from I. It is distinguished from subject. This is specified means distinguished from the subject. So the very naming it as a this is dividing subject into object. Subject and object. When you say this, you are keeping yourself away from this. You are keeping yourself. You are separating yourself. Then there is a subject-object duality. When you say this, one who is saying this is a subject and what is said is this. So specified is object, specifier is the subject. That means what is specified away from the specifier. Object is object. When you see the object, you are seeing object as distinguished from the subject. As distinguished from the subject. The very specifying as an object is distinguishing it from the subject. So subject-object distinction is taking place. Subject-object division. That is Dvaita. That is relational Jnanam. So all pramanas function within that relative state. But Brahman is non-dual. Non-dual means what? We try to imagine. Don't imagine. The very imagination is divisive. The thought is divisive. You see how thought is dissolving itself. There is consciousness, which is not a thought. That means which is itself not thought, but doesn't allow other thoughts. The consciousness itself is not a thought, but doesn't allow other thoughts because it swallows all the thoughts. Swallowing the thought means what? Thought means distinguishing this. This means it is this other than me who is seeing it. So it doesn't divide like that. It doesn't specify a consciousness, unspecified consciousness, and indivisible consciousness. It doesn't specify as this. That something is this is two ways of specifying. This is different from that, or this is different from the one who is seeing it. When you say this, that this is distinguished from the very seer of it. The seer seen duality comes, subject object. So you are not asserting as this. That means subject object duality is dissolved. One of our gurus used to say, you must assert that I am Brahman. Abba, this was the biggest misleading I suffered for years with this kind of teaching. You assert that you are Brahman. I am Brahman, I am Brahman. You assert. What is assertion? Assertion is Dvaita. Assertion is thought. Can thought create Brahman? This is utter foolishness. One of my gurus was teaching me. I took it that way. Years together I suffered. Later I understood the very assertion is samsara. So people in the name of Vedanta, they end up teaching samsara. Therefore Vedanta is not easy. Anybody cannot teach. And everybody should not dare to teach. It is not easy. Unless you understand the truth, it is not easy to teach. One shouldn't dare to teach. Why hurry in becoming a guru before you understand? Why hurry? Why make haste to become guru? Therefore, he says you must assert that you are Brahman, assert. Assertion is a thought. Assertion is a specification. Don't assert anything. Let all assertion drop away. Because Swata Siddham means what? Swata Siddham is not a matter of assertion. Okay. What is Swata Siddham? Swata Siddham means you don't need to assert. If you assert, it is not Swata Siddham. This simple thing, they miss it because they themselves don't have a guru, or they have not understood properly from a guru, or the guru himself told wrongly. Either of them could be the reason. So the assertion is a thought. Non-assertion is allowing itself to stand without any assertion. All the assertion. Now how to stop asserting? One guru told, assert that you are Brahman. Now I am telling you, don't assert. Assertion is a thought. If you assert, there is a duality. You stand as a subject object. The Vishesha comes. So Atma is Nirvishesha. We have to understand the beyond assertion. That means beyond thought. Then how do you say? Stop asserting. But how to stop? Assertion is one thought. Stopping the assertion is another thought. We are creating thought after thought, thought after thought. But how? This is where Vedanta comes. This is the greatest wisdom. You try to understand that. You neither assert nor stop asserting. Understand the very assertion is meaningless. What is Swata Siddham doesn't need assertion. Assertion takes you away from Swata Siddham. Assertion takes you away from Advaita. Therefore, assertion is denying Advaita. Assertion is obstructing Advaita. Understand that. In understanding assertion, itself stops. Stops means what? Itself becomes meaningless. When assertion is understood as becoming meaningless, when the thought is understood as meaningless, unnecessary, when thinking means assertion. Assertion is this. When you say this, the thought of this is assertion. This assertion is unnecessary because assertion only divides. Only specific alone it points out. What we need is absolute, not specific. To know the absolute, can you assert the absolute? It is contradiction. Assertion and absolute are opposite to each other. When you assert, you come into the relative status, relational status. Non-duality is non-relational. That means no assertion is required. The assertion dissolves. Assertion is understood unnecessary and false. Unnecessary for what? For knowing Advitiya Atma. For knowing Advitiya Atma, assertion is not required, because try to understand the nature of assertion. Assertion, thinking. Try to understand the nature of thinking. Thinking divides. Two ways it divides. It divides object from the another object. Object divides from the another object. Object divides from the subject. Okay. Distinguishes from the object. Object, when you say pen, you are demarcating it. You are specifying it. When you circumscribing it, you are eliminating it, distinguishing it from the rest of the world. Isn't it? You are focusing attention on a given thing to the exclusion of remaining. This focusing attention on a given thing while excluding the remaining is divisive. This is thought. This exclusiveness is thought. This is vritti. This is vishesha. This is divisive. Okay. Focusing attention on a given thing while excluding the remaining. So this excluding is thought. Thinking is excluding. This is two ways. One is object is excluding from the remaining object, or the very thought of object is distinguishing it from the subject. It is dividing itself from the subject. So the thought of object is creating a division of subject and object. The very thought. Here, don't assert, don't think. That means what? Thinking. Don't think is not an advice, is not an order. If it is an order, your mind tries to entertain another thought of non-thinking. Thought is thinking. Non-thinking is becoming another thought. Then it doesn't make any difference. It is same. We have to see the dissolution of the thought. We have to see the dissolution of the division. Subject-object division. See how the assertion is creating division. Because your focus, your attention is focusing. Focusing is specifying. So there is an attention without focusing. See how beautiful. Here is a consciousness without focus. That means a consciousness. If you focus, divisive comes. This and the remaining. This and the remaining. That way, don't divide it. Don't divide it. That means don't specify anything. This is called dissolving the thought. Removing the thought. Dissolving the thought means what? Non-assertion, non-specifying, non-focusing. Focusing means dividing it. Focus on one to the exclusion of remaining. So that don't divide that. Excluding something and focusing on given thing to the exclusion of other. This is dividing. This division is thought. Here we want non-duality. Non-duality is swatasiddham. Swatasiddham means it is there without needing a thought which excludes. The very nature of thought is dividing or excluding or specifying. So swatasiddha Brahman doesn't need specification, doesn't need a thought, doesn't need an assertion, because the very assertion is disturbing the Advitiyam, non-dual, non-relational. The non-dual, non-relational is Swatasiddham. It is covering up the Swatasiddham and creating a false thought. Every thought is a false thought. Because the truth is Swatasiddham. Truth is self-existent. It doesn't need a thought. Thought is only covering up the self-existent fact. Yeah, therefore, every thought is trying to cover up the self-existing fact. Then every thought is becoming a false. We are not telling thought is false. Thought itself is becoming on its own false. Because what is thought? Thought is asserting. Thought is specifying. When you specify, you are excluding from the remaining. So this exclusion is not showing the fact as it is. The fact as it is indivisible, unspecified. It cannot be specified. It is not divisible. Okay. So the truth is indivisible. It is self-existing. You don't have to circumscribe this. This means you are excluding from the remain and pointing out, focusing attention on a given thing. But truth is not a given thing. Therefore, you don't need to focus. The habit of focusing, drop it. Drop the very nature of focusing. Drop the nature of specifying. When you understand the very specifying shows only specific object. If you want absolute Brahman, don't specify. Why? Why should I not specify? Because specification cannot show the absolute truth. Specification divides and only shows the part of it. Specifying, the process of specification. The mind's function of specification only divides the truth, shows only part of it, doesn't show the absolute truth. Okay. So if you want the absolute truth, don't specify. Or don't specify means it is not an order. Understand the nature of specification. Don't specify is not an order. It is only asking you to understand. What is it I am supposed to understand? Understand specification is divisive. Specification is not total. Specification is not whole. It is divisive. It is relational. So it doesn't show the absolute truth. Truth itself is self-existing. You don't have to assert, your mind doesn't have to interfere. Mind means what? Thought. Thought means what? Specification. This habit of specification, this function of the mind of specification is interfering. That is Adhyasa. The specification is Adhyasa. Specification is thought. And that process of specification, that process of dividing, excluding, this to the exclusion of other, this to the exclusion of the subject. So this excluding is called thought. So this thought doesn't reveal the absolute truth. See, when thought doesn't reveal, thought has to drop. Thought has to be negated. Negation of thought means understanding the thought, how the thought is divisive. What I want is divisionless, non-dual. Then the thinking doesn't help. Understand, more and more understand, again and again watch how the very thinking is divisive. Thinking is deception. Thinking is misleading you. The very thought is misleading because thought doesn't show the absolute. It divides the absolute, doesn't show the absolute. It doesn't show the fact, it divides the fact. It divides the fact means it creates artificially something false idea of the self-existing fact. Fact is self-existing. Thought is dividing it. Thought is creating false idea. Therefore, this is called Adhyasa. Understanding the very Adhyasa is false. Adhyasa is a thought. Thought is false. Thought is divisive. When you more and more by watching, you understand the nature of it. More you understand, thought becomes weaker, then thought itself dissolves. Because thought is understood as unnecessary. I am only interfering. Thought is only interfering. Okay. Thought is unnecessarily interfering. the self-existing fact. Thought is not revealing the fact, thought is only interfering. Okay. When you understand that thought is interfering, the very interference removed, that is the truth. The very divisive mind, the specifying mind. Now when you sit in meditation, what do? Stop specifying, or understand how specification doesn't reveal the truth. Specification doesn't reveal the absolute truth. Absolute truth is absolute, self-existing. Self-existing means what? The mind's function of specification doesn't help. It neither helps, it unnecessarily obstructs, and it is not required. The functioning of thought, it's a functioning of divisiveness, it's a functioning of specification is unnecessary. More and more you understand it is unnecessary, thought becomes weaker, thinner, ultimately itself unnecessary dissolves because it's not necessary. Dissolves means what? It gets swallowed in the consciousness. The consciousness becomes one non-dual. It swallows the very thinking. Thinking means what? Subject-object duality. Thinking means specification. Specification means specifying as a subject-object. This division, this subject-object contrast gets melted away. Okay. Then that's what is Advaita. Advaita is self-existing. It's a non-dual because we stopped specifying. We stopped the functioning of mind of Dvaita. Advaita remains. Okay. By revising alone, we have spent away time. In fact, we had to proceed with the next argument. But yesterday's, in the last class, we were revising. In the revising alone, we remained. Doesn't matter. Our purpose is not finishing the book. I never took it as a finishing the book. I took it, understanding the truth is important. Once you understand the book, all the book is in you only. You are the book. The book comes from you. You don't have to learn from the book. Book only has to follow you. Book writes what you know it. You are knowing book says. Therefore, book is not required because book requires you. You don't require the book because you means the truth. The truth, book requires the truth. Truth doesn't require the book. Therefore, the very thinking is understood as divisive. It is unnecessarily interfering. It is unnecessarily misrepresenting the truth. When more and more you understand how the very thought is misrepresenting, the subject-object duality is misrepresenting, it can never present the truth. More and more you understand subject-object duality comes closer. Then you understand the very subject-object duality is meaningless and unnecessary for knowing the truth. For knowing the worldly objects is okay. For knowing the absolute truth, it is not required because truth is self-revealing, self-shining. This point, not intellectually, not conceptually, not theoretically, when I am pointing out, watch in your mind. Watch it. Watch in your consciousness. The very thinking, the very specification is unnecessarily dividing. A non-dual truth, self-existing truth, it is artificial. Thinking is artificial. Non-duality is natural. Because thinking specifies, divides, therefore is unnatural. What is unnatural is Adhyasa. Sakshi is Swatasiddham. Adhyasa is artificial. Thinking is artificial. Specification is artificial. More and more you understand, the very artificial thinking dissolves, melts away into consciousness. Consciousness alone remains. Okay. We'll stop with this. Topic goes on. Because this is the topic we need to understand. This is the real crux of the Vedanta. So we spend more time and don't worry about the book, because if you want book, there are other scholars who will teach you. There are other Panditas of our Swamiji's Prakriya. They will teach you, they will finish all this in 1 month or 2 months. So I just can't do. So you can learn. In fact, we are going to publish it in English. Sugama already published it in Kannada, and English it will be coming in another 1 month. I am working on it. That's why in between I have to cancel some classes. I am working on it. So it is getting ready. So we'll publish it mostly by Swamiji's Aradhana Day. Sugama English translation will come out. I'm thinking mostly it should come, otherwise maybe in few days. But I'm keeping a deadline that it should come out by Swamiji's Aradhana Day. So Sugama translation will come out. So if you want book, you can see their word translation. But this vichara, this manana nidhyasana, you have to get it from the right person alone. From the tradition, from Guru alone, you have to get it. Otherwise, you just, if you read the book, you will get only concept. The very how conceptualizing mind has to be dissolved. The mind which has been conceptualizing, which has been dividing, understand it. How the very mind is dividing. How the mind itself is creating subject-object duality. More and more you understand, it dissolves. Dissolves further, then totally dissolves. Then only Brahman remains. Okay. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.